Ecuador's National Assembly has called for the resignation of the country's prison authorities following the recent deadly prison riots. Foreign Minister of the Association of the Southeast Asian States urged the parties in Myanmar to seek a peaceful solution to the conflict. The Democratic Republic of Congo became the latest nation to receive doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine through the WHO's Covax initiative this Tuesday. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. In Ecuador, the National Assembly demands the resignation of authorities due to the recent deadly prison riots and called for the declaration of a state of emergency in the country's prisons. On Monday, the Assembly demanded President Lenín Moreno remove the head of the country's prisons and also the rehabilitation system as well as the government minister. Lawmakers assured that the authorities are responsible for the prison crisis triggered on February the 23rd, which left 79 prisoners dead. With 84 votes in favor, 1 blank and 34 abstentions, the National Assembly demanded the immediate dismissal of the Interior Minister, Patricio Pazmiao, the Director of the National Service for the Comprehensive Care of People Deprived of Liberty, Edmundo Moncayo, and Johanna Pesantes, President of the Technical Agency for Social Rehabilitation. And former Peruvian President Alberto Fujimori is on trial for his role in a 1990s government program in which many indigenous women in poor communities were forcibly sterilized, with some dying or suffering serious injuries because of infection. The judicial process led by Judge Rafael Martinez began on Monday, following years of demands by human rights activists as well as numerous obstacles, including prosecutors who shelved investigations of Fujimori in the past. The new prosecutor in the case, Pablo Espinosa, said sterilizations were carried out in unsanitary conditions and that some women died from infections. Fujimori has been implicated in the death of 5 women and the injuries of another 1,301 women who were allegedly sterilized against their will. Fujimori had boasted that the sterilization program dropped Peru's birth rate from 3.7 children per woman in 1990 to 2.7 children a decade later. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador noted on Tuesday that he had discussed a temporary worker program with the U.S. counterpart Joe Biden during their first bilateral meeting. López Obrador characterized the meeting as friendly, respectful, and with a lot of emphasis on cooperation for development, and stressed that he had no differences with the U.S. president. López Obrador also said he had proposed the United States to analyze how many workers its economy requires, and then design a plan for temporary worker visas that will allow Mexicans and Central Americans to migrate legally to the U.S. for work. Hundreds of waste pickers took to the streets of the Colombian capital, Bogota, to raise awareness about their contributions to recycling efforts and the promotion of environmental sustainability. Our correspondent, Hernán Tobar, brings us the details.
The main streets of Bogota witnessed the commemoration of Waste Pickers Day, as work that is recognized by society, but that every year brings to mind those who have died fulfilling this task and working to protect the environment.
On March 1, 1992, it was discovered that at the Barranquilla campus of the Free University's medical school, waste pickers were being murdered by tricking them into the university to collect paper and cardboard, where they were slaughtered, their organs were extracted, and then used for organ trafficking, and their bodies sold for medical studies for $10.
The current circumstances in which waste pickers work in the country has resulted in a fall in their income. The prices set for each recycled item are low, and many collectors work for more than 8 hours a day. They do not have access to a pension or social security. Meanwhile, major corporations are monopolizing this sector and trying to push local waste pickers out of the chain of production, as Doña Cecilia, who has been doing this work since she was 17.
The government wants us out. Uribe's children wants us out. They have plenty of wealth, and they are the ones who want to buy up the cardboard factories and close them, and get rid of us. because to them we are garbage. We are worthless to the Uribes. They have more money than they know what to do with, which they are making off the backs of us, poor people, who recycle the waste.
In Colombia, 500,000 people live of waste collection and recycling, and are affected by policies that seek to drive small cooperatives and their workers out of competition. For this reason, they gather to voice their demands in Bolivar Square, where they work, and its importance for the protection of the environment were recognized.
Today, most of the things we use are made with renewable and non-renewable natural resources. For example, the raw material used to make paper. We need to cut down more than 20 years old tree in order to have the pulp, to use more than 600,000 liters of water, consume more than 7,000 kilowatts of energy per hour. When we undertake this activity, we are reducing the current environmental impact by up to 50%. We recyclers are taking advantage and recovering more than 50% of the total garbage that is being produced.
Sector workers stress that they will continue in their struggle until all their labor rights are respected and their well-being guaranteed. They note that their work helps make the planet more sustainable and demand to be heard and not looked down on.
Hernán Darío Tovar, TeleSUR, Bogota, Colombia.
We'll take a short break now. Follow us on Twitter at TeleSUR English and Gladys TeleSUR. Welcome back to From the South. Foreign ministers of the Association of Southeast Asian States held talks on Tuesday, expressing their concern over the violence in Myanmar and urging the parties to seek a solution to the conflict. The Secretary General of the bloc, Lim Jok-hoi, assured that he is willing to help the country in a positive, peaceful and constructive manner. The association, which brings together 10 countries, including Myanmar, has a principle of non-interference in each other's affairs. However, member states invited the military government and popular movements to resolve their differences in a peaceful manner. The statements came after officials' reports cited that clashes during protests on February 28th resulted in 18 fatalities and more than 30 wounded. The World Food Programme and the UN Refugee Agency appealed for $266 million on Tuesday to end food ration cuts for over 3 million refugees in East Africa. In recent months, the World Food Programme has been forced to implement ration cuts for up to 60%, compromising long-standing efforts to achieve food security in refugee camps in Uganda, Kenya, South Sudan, Djibouti and Ethiopia. East Africa hosts one of the largest displaced populations of any region in the world. The impact of the funding shortfalls on refugee families has been compounded by COVID-19 lockdowns and measures to contain the pandemic spread, which had already reduced the availability of food in markets and refugee camps and wrecked many refugees' hopes of helping to support their families through casual labor and small businesses.
The most dramatic cut is in Rwanda, where starting from this March, refugees will have their rations cut by 60%, meaning that refugees will only receive 40% of the recommended minimum daily kilocalories. As our refugee program in Rwanda is completely cash transfers, we can quickly reverse this situation, but only if we can receive additional funding.
These cuts will have dramatic consequences, and without the funds, thousands of refugees, many of them being children, will not have enough to eat. Already the cuts in food rations and cash are forcing people to skip or reduce meals, to sell off their belongings, and the risks are growing, including of child labor and domestic violence.
And protesters in Algeria defied a ban on public gatherings on Tuesday to rally against the government. Around 2,000 protesters, mostly students, demonstrated in the capital Algiers against what they describe as a military state as the two-year-old Iraq protest movement resurges. The protest movement broke out in February 2019 against then-President Abdelaziz Bouteflika's bid for a fifth term in office. Bouteflika stepped down weeks later, but the movement continued with twice-weekly demonstrations demanding sweeping reform to the country's institutions. Bouteflika's successor, Abdelmajid Tebboune, elected in December 2019 poll, has reached out to the movement and stated that the demands of the popular, authentic Iraq had largely been achieved. And Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron spoke in a video call on Tuesday for the first time since September. The Turkish president stated that the two countries can make significant contributions to security, stability and peace efforts from Europe to the Caucasus, Middle East and Africa, and can take joint steps to fight terrorism. He also stated that cooperation between the two countries has very serious potential as the two NATO members work to normalize ties after bitter disputes last year, including clashes over issues such as the conflicts in Syria and Libya and Turkey's energy exploration in the Eastern Mediterranean. Zimbabwe's Vice President Kembo Mohari resigned on Monday in the face of allegations of sexual misconduct. Since late last month, local media has been plagued with audio recordings of phone conversations in which Mohari allegedly solicited sex from several women, including a female subordinate in his office. In a letter posted on the Information Ministry's Twitter account, 71-year-old Mohari informed that he was stepping down with immediate effect and stressed that he had decided to leave office not as a matter of cowardice, but out of respect for the office of the presidency. The leader repeated his denial of any wrongdoing, claiming the allegations were an act of political sabotage. We'll take a short break now, but we'll be right back, so don't go away. Welcome back. The Democratic Republic of Congo received its first batch of AstraZeneca vaccines against COVID-19 through the global Covax initiative this Tuesday. The vaccine doses were received at Kinshasa's International Airport by Health Minister Eteni Longondo. The arrival of the doses made by AstraZeneca and India's Serum Institute was previously announced by the Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. The country has reported a total of over 26,000 coronavirus cases and more than 700 fatalities to rank 22nd in Africa.
We had ordered more or less 6 million doses, but today we have received 1.7 million doses. It is a donation from Gavi, from the international community, that we are going to use here in Congo, first of all, to vaccinate medical staff, and also the people who are over 55 years old and people with comorbidities such as chronic hypertension, diabetes.
Speaking during an expert online panel event hosted by the University of Edinburgh and the Edinburgh Futures Institute this Tuesday, top U.S. infectious disease expert Anthony Fauci and top Chinese respiratory disease expert Song Nanshan expressed optimism about the effective control of the COVID-19 pandemic in the coming year.
I believe that 1 year from now, my hope would be that we will have implemented vaccine programs. I know we're not going to get the world vaccinated in 1 year, but I would hope that we suppress the dynamics of this outbreak to the point where it may not be eliminated, but it is under extraordinarily good control so that there can be some steps towards normality.
What situation will be happening is quite difficult to predict. But anyway, I'm optimistic for the situation. In 1 year time, I think that all the situation is getting much better as compared with right now. So that's what I think. So we need to have more work to do, to have a global collaboration from each other in terms of developing some effective drugs and monoclonal antibodies, and also effective vaccine.
And the governor of the U.S. state of Texas, Greg Abbott, announced the lifting of the face mask mandate, making it the largest state to end an order aimed at preventing the spread of the coronavirus that has killed more than 42,000 Texans. The governor also announced the authorization for all businesses to 100% reopened.
So today, I'm issuing a new executive order that rescinds most of the earlier executive orders. Effective next Wednesday, all businesses of any type are allowed to open 100%. That includes any type of entity in Texas. Also, I am ending the statewide mask mandate.
In the United States, access to COVID-19 vaccination is based on money. From Los Angeles, we bring you the following report from Eloy Auracem, our correspondent from Brasil de Faro.
Although effective against the novel coronavirus, the vaccines distributed in the United States have a side effect, the deepening of social inequality in the healthcare system. According to Stat News, the distribution of available doses is linked to people's income. In the richest areas of the country, the immunization rate is higher. To understand the dimension of this abyss, we can look at the situation in California, the most populated and richest state in the country. There, people in the richest areas are vaccinated 56% faster than those in the poorest regions.
Where we can see that areas that have higher levels of this social vulnerability currently are experiencing higher levels of COVID infections, hospitalizations, and deaths. And so what we want to see in this next phase of the pandemic is, could we use those data to target areas that have that higher social vulnerability, have higher levels of COVID? Those are the areas we need to especially focus on for vaccine distribution.
Beyond income, the administration of vaccine doses is also a racial issue. According to an Associated Press survey, the African American, Hispanic, and indigenous population of the United States suffers mortality rates 3 times higher than that of the white population. Vaccination does not follow this logic, however, and in states such as North Carolina, where white people make up 68% of the population, they make up 82% of those vaccinated.
If we are prioritizing health workers, but we are not worried about the person of color who are having the low paid job within the health worker, he is losing or she is losing the line in the vaccine. So we need to be mindful of those things. We need to be mindful that people of minorities may suffer from chronic condition because of multiple reasons. So we need to reach out to them. We need to have campaign to reach out to them.
Although the pandemic has shown the disparity in access to healthcare, this inequality existed before the arrival of the novel coronavirus, and the only cure is to remedy the problem at its roots.
I think it really starts with what people call the social determinants of health, and that's often described as where you're born, live, work, and play. And so from the very moment an individual is born, they're born into a set of social circumstances. And so in settings, for example, the US, where there's a lot of societal or structural inequities, those paths look very different from how early childhood education or being raised, to what opportunities there are, to what food access. Many things really diverge early on. When I see someone in the hospital, I think they've come in with this condition. Where did that really start?
However, in the case of the current pandemic, experts warn that efforts must be global, not focused in a single place.
And I wanted to send this message very clear and very loud, that rich countries need to pay attention to poor countries and put money into helping lower income, middle income countries to expedite the rollout of the vaccinations. We need globalization in here. insulation is not the solution. I mean, solving just the problem for country A, high-income country, will not solve the situation because trade will still open, movement of people will still open. So at the global level, countries have to put money to reduce these disparities.
Bloomberg estimates that at the current rate, it will take up to 7 years for the world to be immunized against COVID-19, taking into account that 75% of the world population would need to be vaccinated.
Legendary Jamaican reggae singer Bunny Wailer has passed away at the age of 73. Wailer, the co-founder and last living member of the reggae group The Wailers, which took Bob Marley to global stardom, passed away at the Medical Associates Hospital in Kingston on Tuesday morning, according to his manager Maxine Stowe. The artist had been frequently hospitalized since suffering a stroke in July 2020. Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness was among those paying tribute to the star, offering deep condolences to his family, friends and fans, and describing his death as a great loss for Jamaica and for reggae. In 2017, the Jamaican government awarded Bunny Wailer an Order of Merit, the country's fourth highest honor. The government again recognized his contribution to Jamaican music in February 2019 with the Reggae Gold Award.
Started to put the group together, and then you come from a whaling environment where people always born.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.